What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of The Michael Balco Show. It's your host. You don't even need an introduction. Come on now, y'all. Joining me today is a 9-year NFL veteran who hails from Dwight, Illinois, a TV personality who was featured in season 14 of The Bachelorette, season 6 of Bachelor in Paradise, and fourth-round draft pick by the Philadelphia Eagles, the one, the only, Clay Harbor. How we doing, brother?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day already out here in Chicago. Sun just rose, ready to seize the day. Carpe diem.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got to, right? You got to get up. You just got to get going and do this thing. But first and foremost, we got to rep the hometown. Let's talk about your hometown of Dwight, Illinois, and what makes it so unique.
Well, Dwight is very small. I mean, it's not even. It's about 3,000 people in the entire population. It's in the middle of the state of Illinois, and there's really not much. It's not even a town. It's technically a village because we don't reach all the requirements to be called a town. So it's actually the village of Dwight. I graduated with about 60 kids in my class in high school. We had to have 3 schools come together to form one football team. So it's small. Everybody knows everybody. You know everybody's family, their grandma. You know where everybody lives, everybody's house. So it's interesting, but I wouldn't have chosen any other way to grow up. It was unique, but I enjoyed it.
How did you end up getting to Chicago? Tell us a little bit about Chicago. What makes that special for you?
So yeah, Chicago is just the closest city to where my family lives. My mom still lives in Dwight. My aunts and a lot of my family. Then my dad lives a little bit closer to the city, the suburbs. My grandma on my other side of the family. So when I got drafted to NFL in the off seasons, where do I want to stay? And I wanted to be near family, and I decided that Chicago was the best bet because it was a city that I could get to everybody kind of in the middle. So that's why I started living in Chicago, and it's been like 15 years now, but I love the city.
In hindsight, you never played for the Chicago Bears. Was that ever like an option for you?
I had a chance to play for the Bears, but in the NFL, when you're playing, money talks. So they didn't give the contract that the Jaguars did. So I went back to the Jags.
Nice, nice. So like you just kind of mentioned, you graduated with about 60 other kids. And that dampened your recruiting process a little bit, unrightfully so, as you just shattered school records. So you were overlooked as a high school football recruit, despite securing an all-interstate 8 conference honor in football as well as basketball and track. So tell us about your recruiting experience and how you ended up at Missouri State.
Yeah, being from a small school, you don't get recruited much. My brother the year before was really good, and he only got one scholarship offer from Missouri State University, and he took it. And I'm going through the same thing, breaking school records. I was a 3-sport all-state athlete, and when it came down to it, I didn't have many offers. It was more of a basketball player. I got hurt during my first, I think it was like my 3rd game maybe in my senior year of basketball. So then the bigger schools dropped out. And the only school that really was interested in offering me a scholarship was Missouri State. And that's because my brother, kept telling them, hey, like, this guy's good. Check out my tape. Check out my tape. They checked out the tape. They liked me, and they brought me in. So luckily, I had a brother there to be a salesman for me, and it worked out.
Yeah, and I think, looking back at a lot of guys who have found success at the professional level in the NFL and even the XFL and all these other leagues across the world, really, it's always the small school dudes that always like stick out and leave that, that lasting impression, so they just need to start recruiting the smaller high schools, man, because they're built different.
Yeah. If I ever become a coach or something in college, I'm definitely not going to overlook these small schools because there's some talent there and they play the game the way it's supposed to be played, in my opinion. And you get to play both ways. Like, I loved playing offense. I was a starting wide receiver. I was a starting safety. I was our kicker. I was our punter. I was our kick returner. I was our punt returner. So the whole game, I never left the field. There ain't no unit thing. You're getting cross-trained in every position.
Got that stamina built up, my man. So while at Missouri State, you basically just rewrote the entire record book again. You set records in all-time receptions, reception to season, amongst other things. When did you realize that you had the tools to take your talents to the next level and play in the NFL?
Yeah, it did. I broke a lot of records, but it didn't happen right away. So I go in as a freshman, and everybody wants to play, and they don't realize that it's probably the best you get redshirted. So I got redshirted, and that was cool. I ended up being able to acclimate a little bit to the college life. The next season, I didn't play much either. I was a wide receiver when I got recruited, and my redshirt freshman year, I probably had about 6 receptions for 70 yards or something as a wide receiver. Finally, my sophomore year, we had a couple injuries at the tight end position, and the coaches were like, "Hey, Clay, like we need you to move to tight end." And I was mad. I didn't want to play tight end. I thought I was a wide receiver, and they moved me to tight end. And then when I started playing there, I realized how easy it was to get open from the tight end position as opposed to the wide receiver position, because you're still the same player. You got the same speed and route running capabilities and catch the football. But now instead of running against cornerbacks whose sole job is to stop someone from catching the football, you're running against linebackers most of the time. I'm like, dude, these guys can't guard me. And I went from being this guy that was this average receiver, couldn't step on the field. I moved to tight end, and I'm just dominating these guys, and these guys can't guard me. And I ended up being getting All-America honors and first-team All-Conference honors as a sophomore, junior, and senior. So it was kind of funny how that happened. If we don't have injuries, I may never move to tight end. And, obviously I don't think I had what it took to play in the NFL as a wide receiver.
Yeah, as you mentioned, you moved from wide receiver to tight end. Kind of how was that transition? Was that a rather easy transition for you? I know you said you didn't like it at first, but, did you feel like it's harder to be a receiver, or do you feel like it's harder to be a tight end? I know, tight end kind of requires you to like have a little bit more of that second level and that behind the scenes aspect of the game, if you will, like the blocking and, assisting in the run game a little bit more. Kind of what's your take on that?
I mean, it's difficult as a receiver to run routes on a cornerback because cornerbacks are pretty good at coverage if you're talking about tight end versus receiver. But as a position as a whole, tight end, because you got to know protections, you got to know blocking, you got to know some of that stuff as a receiver. But basically, you're just running routes out there and stock blocking either the cornerback or the safety. So you got to know all the protections, you got to know the run blocks at tight end, and then you also got to you got to be physical. You got to be able to hold up in the run game, and then you got to run routes and be able to do all that stuff. So I think tight end's harder mentally, but physically, as far as getting open, if that's what you're talking about, then I'd say wide receiver is much more difficult because the guys you're going against out there, their one job is to stop you from catching a pass. A linebacker's got to be able to take on a lead block, take on a pulling guard, and be able to guard a tight end. So they got a lot of things on their mind. And if you're a guy that could take on a offensive guard, you're not going to guard me. That was always my sense.
Is there one player throughout your entire football career that like really resonates with you as one guy that was very, very hard to play against?
Yeah, there was a couple. I really, back when I was with the Eagles, I didn't like DeMarcus Ware. He got the better of me whenever I had to block him one-on-one, and that guy he's a Hall of Famer, but that was never fun trying to block D Ware. Mario Williams, if you remember, an older Houston Texan, first-round draft pick. I had trouble with that guy too. I remember he literally like picked me up off the ground one play, and I'm like, wow, like you're a grown man, Clay. Like, come on, you can't let that happen. But those two guys were good.
Yeah, for sure. And then we're going to flash it back a little bit. So you were drafted in the 4th round of the 2010 NFL draft, coming from a small school, overlooked in high school recruiting. You got that one offer that you needed. How good did that feel to get drafted, and not just drafted, but like the way I always say it is like, if you're drafted in like those top 4 to 5 rounds, like, you're almost a lock to make the roster. Not necessarily, but like, you're pretty much a lock to make the roster. So you were drafted with pretty high capital, coming from a small school. What was your draft experience like as a whole, and how did it feel to kind of go through that whole process?
Yeah, that experience was, honestly, looking back, like that was probably one of the funnest times of my life, because you're hiring an agent, and you got these teams flying you out for visits. You got the combine coming, then you got these all-star games. You're trying to show out in these all-star games. And then right after that, you just sit back and you're working out and you're waiting for the draft. And the draft was a really special day. I was in my hometown, Dwight. I got a little hotel. There was one hotel in town just because people were showing up at my house trying to like talk to me about it. I'm like, dude, I don't want to talk to these people. So me and my friends and my dad got a hotel. We just waited out the draft out there. And Coach Reed called me. Hey, Clay, it's Andy Reid. We're going to draft you. I'm like, okay. And, like, wow, this is crazy. This is really happening. And I wanted to get drafted a little earlier. I was hoping for the 3rd round. That's what some of the experts had told me. But getting drafted in the 4th round was fine as long as I got the opportunity to play in the NFL. And it was a very special day. We popped some champagne. We had a little barbecue at my mom's house. And, yeah, we enjoyed it.
That's awesome, man. And so, you get to Philadelphia. What teammate is kind of the first one to reach out to you, kind of take you under their arms and kind of show you the ropes about NFL football? So which teammates kind of helped you transition to the NFL the most?
I mean, we had a great team there, but I don't think there was any guys that were really mentors. But I kind of hung out with some of the other rookies. My roommate, I ended up being a roommate that year. His name was Kurt Coleman. He was a really good friend of mine. Nate Allen was a good guy. I used to hang out with a lot. Austin Howard, offensive tackle, was playing up until recently. Guy had a great career. But so there was some really good guys in the team. But as far as like a mentor, I don't think I really had that as far as another player. I mean, I had another tight end, Brent Selleck, was a great player, but he didn't really want to be bothered with as like a mentor or anything like that. But a really good guy, and he was a good guy to like model your game after on Sundays.
Yeah, and tell us the story of when Chip Kelly came to Philadelphia. I think it was Philadelphia, yeah, and he wanted you to switch from tight end to outside linebacker. Tell us that story.
Yeah, so Chip comes in from college, big time signing, Chip Kelly. And he's got this idea because he likes my athleticism. I was a pretty athletic guy. I mean, I didn't get the numbers I should have, but in practice, if there was a Hall of Fame for practice, I would have been a practice Hall of Famer. Guys couldn't guard me in practice, but for some reason it didn't always translate to the game. But it's like, man, we really like your athletic ability. And they drafted Zach Ertz. We had Brent Selleck, James Casey. We had just signed a dude named Derek Carrier. And I was just buried on the depth chart after playing for my first 3 years. So he wants to move me to linebacker, and I was open to it. So I played OTAs trying to rush the passer as outside linebacker, trying to get off the ball, rush the passer, pass drop. I've never backpedaled in my life. And it was interesting. And after a few days, I mean, I just told Chip straight up, like, hey, man, like, I don't want to play linebacker. And honestly, I asked him to trade me or release me, and he wouldn't do it. But ended up going back to tight end. Then he moved me to wide receiver for the rest of that camp and preseason. So it was an interesting year for sure.
Yeah, just trying to come in and give you the old Miles Jack treatment, I guess. Who is the best quarterback that you've ever played with throughout your entire football career?
Well, I didn't get to play with him much, but because in New Orleans, week 1 I got put on IR, so I didn't get to play with him. But I mean, going through camp and preseason with Drew Brees, I mean, he's a special guy. Tom Brady, I only got to play with him for one game. He was on his. I played 5 games with the Patriots in the whole offseason with the Patriots, but Tom Brady was on Deflategate, so I really didn't get to play with Tom. But the rest of that season, I played with Detroit, and I think Stafford is actually the guy that I really got to play with, for 10-plus games. I think Stafford's a great quarterback, and he showed it this year when he won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Matt Stafford a little bit later for sure. We're gonna talk about him. So you wound up playing for 5 NFL teams over a 9-year span. I want to play a little game with you, dog. I want to play a little game with you since you're the only one here with any Bachelor experience, okay? If you had to pick between the NFL cities that you played in, so we're talking Philadelphia, Jacksonville, New England, Detroit, New Orleans. If you had to pick between those cities, which city gets a rose, which city gets sent home first, and which city do you marry?
Oh, man. I liked all the cities, but I'll probably send home Detroit. I mean, there's really not much going on in Detroit. And I'll also send home New Orleans. I wasn't a big fan of New Orleans. I never really got to experience like the nightlife or the restaurants out there. But when I did go experience, I'm like, dude, this place is not for me. So I didn't really like New Orleans or Detroit. And then Boston was great. But I'll probably send Boston home too because I didn't spend as much time there. And I would give Philadelphia a row. I love Philly. It's a special spot for me and a place I could live. Whereas Jacksonville, I think Jacksonville is underrated. There's a lot of cool areas out there. I love Duval, and it was pretty good. So I would actually, surprisingly, I know for a lot of people, is I really like Jacksonville.
I was actually born in Jacksonville. I'm a big New Orleans Saints fan, so I'm conflicted with your response to that question.
You like New Orleans as a city?
Huh?
Do you like New Orleans as a city?
I've never actually been there, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. It seems like a really dope community overall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just seems cool. And every person I talk to that used to play for the Saints, all they talk about is how great the city is. And I'm just like, oh, snap. So I got to go. It's definitely on my bucket list of things to do.
I want to experience it again too, honestly.
Yeah, we should go together. Let's make it a thing.
Let's make it a trip to the game this year.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about – so we kind of just played that little game, but now let's just talk a little bit about your Bachelor experience as a whole. How does that come about? To my understanding, you were still, playing in the NFL at the time that you joined the Bachelorette. How does that process come about? And then kind of overall, what was your Bachelorette experience like?
Yeah, no, I was still playing, and it was the off season, and these people just kind of approached a friend of mine to try to go on the show. He had tried out before, and he couldn't anymore because he was seeing a girl, and he's like, "Oh, I got some friends you might like," and he showed him, pictures of a few of his buddies, me and a couple other guys. I'm like, "Oh, I like this guy. These guys are who's this?" And he's like, "Oh, it's my buddy Clay. He plays football, but I'll give you this number." And like, "Oh, we can work with them. We're very accommodating." And so next thing you know, they offer me this gig. I didn't have to do any of the casting stuff, and they're like, "We just want you to come on." So I ended up going on there. I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? And I ended up getting injured on the show, which is hilarious that I got injured as a football player. So that's kind of how I got on the show. And then, and only stayed for like 3 weeks. It was like not even 3 weeks, 2 weeks filming. And that's pretty much that. It just a buddy ran into a casting director who started reaching out.
Bro, I watched the clip last night of the whole football scene, injury and all that. How the hell do the producers think that's a good idea to just put everybody in football pads and just run at each other? I don't know, dog.
It wasn't even football pads. It was hockey pads. It was bad. And I didn't play at first, but I just played the last drive. I'm like, all right, we should go win this game. And I'd had my wrist surgically repaired the year before in New Orleans, and it wasn't healed yet, even though the doctor told me it was good to go. The first time I did anything with it was on that show, and that's how it happened. The first time I touched anyone with this wrist.
That's crazy, dog. So be honest with me. Do you enjoy The Bachelorette or Bachelor in Paradise more?
Neither, honestly. No, it's interesting. It's a fun world. I made a lot of friends, but reality TV, I've decided, it's really not for me. It's a whole, they try to manipulate people and make people look a certain way and tell a story. And it's a weird world. And honestly, looking back, I wish I probably wouldn't have done that. It was a cool experience. I made a lot of friends, but I don't really like, being known as like the football player that went on The Bachelor. I just like being known as like I was a football player, and and everybody that I ever meet is always, this is Clay from The Bachelor. And so it's weird because it's a part of my life. I made a lot of friends, but as far as the show's concerned, it's not like a show I'm really respect or I'm proud of. A lot of these guys on the show, they'll go on and they'll get some form of D-list celebrity status. And some of these guys think they're Leonardo DiCaprio because they went on The Bachelor. I'm like, dude, this is a reality television show. You don't need any talent to go on this. I respect the guys that played football, worked their tails off to get drafted, play in the league for a number of years, be successful that way, not so much as a person who just got cast to go on a reality TV show.
Yeah, for sure. Most definitely. And we're gonna flip it back to football. Don't worry.
I don't mind talking about it.
Awesome. Yeah, we're flipping it back to football. And tell us some of your favorite, I don't know, just give me like your favorite on-field moment throughout your entire NFL career.
I'll probably say my first touchdown. It was a Tuesday night football game, believe it or not, because we're playing on a Tuesday because our Monday night football game got snowed out in Philadelphia. And, we're the only show on right now on TV. And then I ended up catching a touchdown pass from Michael Vick. It was my rookie year. And that was pretty exciting for me. And looking back, that was a really special moment. And, sometimes I'll just look at some old clips from that and just go back down memory lane. So that was a good one.
So you mentioned to me earlier that you played alongside Matthew Stafford. You've played alongside Michael Vick. You played alongside Drew Brees. And you played alongside Tom Brady. Which four quarterbacks, excluding Tom Brady, obviously, because he's still in the NFL, but which four quarterbacks do you think fit the mold of those the most? Like, for example, like which guys Justin Herbert resemble? Like, give me, like, I don't know, your best comparison for Mike Vick, your best comparison for Drew Brees, and your best comparison for Matthew Stafford in today's NFL. That's not Matthew Stafford, obviously.
Yeah, no, I think like Mike Vick, you got a guy like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's pretty impressive guy. He's so fast and so athletic, and it reminds me of Michael Vick a lot. They both got big arms. They both can run. As far as Drew Brees, I'd say a guy like Joe Burrow. They both seem to be very accurate and have that same type of work ethic. So those are two guys that I think you can really compare to those type of players. Obviously, Burrow's a little bit bigger than Drew was. Drew's only 5'11", 6 foot tall with 200 pounds. So he was a smaller guy, and to be that successful at that size was pretty impressive.
Yeah, most definitely. So tonight we got football, my man. We got football. It's an exciting time for all football fans, former players, everybody, man. It's a very, very exciting time. It's the last time we don't have football until the end of February, so that's super exciting. We got the LA Rams hosting the Buffalo Bills. The Bills come in as betting favorites to secure the dub on the road. Who is your pick to win? And give us a score prediction because, hey, listen, dog, at like midnight, 11:30, something like that, if your score prediction is right, we're about to just go viral real quick.
I would say 27-24 Rams over the Bills. And
I love it.
I know the Bills are the favorites, but I mean, we're talking about the defending Super Bowl champion who's kind of retooled their team. They got some players out there, man. And the fact that they're underdogs, I'm gonna have to take the Rams. I'm sorry, and if I bet tonight, I'm gonna put some money on the Rams.
You got to, you have to, you absolutely have to. And so, who is your pick? There's a lot of up and coming teams. This is gonna be one of the best seasons of NFL football that I think I can think of in recent memory at least. And there's just so many like really, really, really good teams, especially in the AFC. More particularly the AFC West.
Yeah.
Who is your pick to win the Super Bowl this year? Or give me your Super Bowl matchup and who do you have as the winner of the Super Bowl?
It's hard to go against Tom Brady in the NFC right now. Obviously, some people like the 49ers. You don't really know what Trey Lance is going to give you. Some people like the Eagles. I like the Eagles. So I'll say NFC Championship game. I'll take the Eagles versus the Bucks. And I'll have the Bucks taking the NFC, and then on the other side, I think it's going to be Chiefs, Bills, and I'm going to go with Chiefs versus Bucks again. And this time I think the Chiefs win again, like they did out there in Miami. But I think the Rams will have something to say again in the NFC as well. So Eagles, Rams, Buccaneers, I think, are going to be the three big dogs in the NFC this year. and then Bills, Chiefs. I think Denver, but I mean it's all that division. You know, that division is going to be tough. So you know, I think the Chiefs will take it though. It's hard to bet against Mahomes and Andy Reid. Those are the guys that are going to make another run for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and the way I view it is you can't bet against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes until they give you a reason not to. So I'm rolling with the Chiefs as long as I can, man, because I mean the Chargers are right there. I mean, we got Justin Herbert, Mike Williams, like we got some Austin Eckler. I mean, pound for pound, one of my favorite running backs in the NFL. And then you got, like you said, the Denver Broncos up and coming. I do, like in my rankings, I have them finishing 4th and they still have a winning record. So it's
crazy, right?
It's ridiculous to me. I've never seen a division that loaded before. I love the Philadelphia Eagles out of the NFC this year as well. Like you mentioned, they just picked up my boy Chauncey Gardner-Johnson too. So he's going to be a huge addition. They're not playing him in the nickel though. It's a little strange to me. That's all he's ever played in New Orleans and they're starting him at safety. I don't know. So I followed you on Twitter and, you know, you're tweeting a ton about the Chicago Bears. So what is your kind of season outlook for the Chicago Bears, you know, this year?
I know the national media think the Bears are going to be like 3-14, you know, 4-13, something like that. But I think they can win seven games this year. I'm not saying that the Bears are going to go to the Super Bowl or make the playoffs even, but I think they're going to be more competitive than people think. I think they can win 8 games this year. I think Fields has actually improved a lot, and they got more weapons than people think. You got Mike Martz saying that this is the least talented team he's seen since the 0-16 Detroit Lions, and I just don't think that's right. I think Cole Kmet's going to have a big year. I think Darnell Mooney is a solid receiver. David Montgomery is a running back that's vastly underrated. O-line's not good, I'll be honest. It's not good, but I don't think it's the worst in the league. Like everybody's got them ranked. I mean, they're probably down there in like 23, something like that. They're not great, but watching them in camp, like some of these young guys are actually pretty good. And I know you see a 5th-round draft pick start and you get scared, but like Braxton Jones and Larry Borum was a 5th-round draft pick last year. But these guys can actually play a little bit. And, you know, if I'm not watching – I think the same thing, but you know they're holding up. They're going against Robert Quinn every day. You know they're playing against some big time guys and they're holding their own. So I'm a little bit more hopeful for the hometown Bears than I am than a lot of the other national media members are.
I like several other fantasy football players, millions of fantasy football players across the country and the world really own Darnell Mooney in fantasy football. Please, please, please give me something positive about my boy Darnell Mooney going into week 1. Is he looking like that wide receiver 1 for sure? Like kind of what do you think we can expect from like a target standpoint for him?
Oh yeah, he's going to get tons of targets. I mean, he's the only really proven weapon that the Bears got. He's going to get the ball thrown his way a bunch, and I think Fields is looking better this year. So I think you got a good one there, and I think Mooney will impress.
I'm pretty hyped. I also have Justin Fields in a super flex league, so like you can have 2 quarterbacks play, and I have Justin Fields, and then I have Darnell Mooney in a different league, so I'm pretty pumped. I am pretty sold on the Bears. I have David Montgomery in a couple leagues. I like the Bears. I like those guys that you talked about. Cole Kmet is one of my favorite sleeper picks of the entire season. So from a fantasy football perspective, I'm loving the upside the Chicago Bears give you. Like you said, the O-line definitely needs some work. But you never know. You just never know what's going to happen. These dudes could just decide to ball out this year. And then, that's what happened with the Saints. As a big Saints fan myself, the Saints were viewed to have one of the worst offensive lines. And then in 2016, they decided to just snap out of it, ball out and do their thing. So it's just kind of, you just never know really. So what have you been up to recently, my man?
Yeah, so I actually went back to school. I'm in Kelly School of Business right now. I'm going after my MBA, my master's in business administration, and I kind of want to do some consulting after I graduate here. It's a remote program. It's a 2-year program. So I've been studying a lot, doing a lot of schoolwork, and it's fun though. I like it. I like learning. I'm always interested in business stuff and how everything works and these symbiotic relationships that companies have, and the game theory and the strategies and the IT stuff. So it's pretty cool stuff. And Kelly's a top 15 business school. So so what I'm doing right now is back in school at the ripe age of 35. I'm going to college.
It's never too late. It's never too late. That's one thing to always keep in mind for anybody listening, especially you young people out there, or even you older people out there. It's never too late to go back and chase your dreams and do what you want to do. I mean, my boy Clay was balling in the league for 9 years. He's going back, getting that degree. So that's what's up. I ask every single guest on my show the same question to kind of conclude the show. What is one piece of advice, regardless of the audience, anything like that, that you would give to somebody just in general?
Yeah. So if you want to make a change, if you ever want to change your life and be more successful or just be better, and you got to realize that it's not one transformative moment that is going to make this change. It's going to be your daily habits and your daily routines. You'll never change something. You'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. It's all about getting 1% better a day. James Clear Atomic Habits. You get 1% better a day, you'll be 37% better at the end of the year. The old Aristotle quote, "You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is not an act, but a habit." If you want to be great, you got to change your daily routine. You got to change your daily habits. Implement one habit at a time. It's easier to implement one habit than two. Make it the smallest actual part of that habit you can do. Just get yourself in the gym for 20 minutes a day. The next thing you know, once you got that established, you can expand that to 30 minutes. You want to start eating healthy. You got to start, make sure you buy some healthy food from the store. And, okay, so I'll start with, okay, half my plate's healthy. Then you kind of gradually improve. So implement the habit. Implement the habit as a small portion, and just know that the change is done incrementally and in small pieces. It doesn't happen all at once.
That's great advice. I've actually never gotten that advice on this show before. Over 100 episodes deep, and we've never gotten anyone, telling you to self-improve yourself like that. That's awesome. I love that. Clay, where can we find you at on social media?
Yeah, just Clay Harbs82 on Twitter. That's pretty much it. I talk a lot of football. I've been doing a lot of. I've been very interested in the league this year, and being an analyst or something similar to that is something that's always intrigued me. Kind of been like a little side gig I've liked to try to do. So if you want to talk football, you love sports like I do, follow me on Twitter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, Clay Harbor, 9-year NFL vet, spent time with 5 different NFL teams. Thank you so much for hopping on the show today. Make sure y'all follow my boy. I'll link his socials in the description of this episode. Once again, thank you so much, Clay, for hopping on the show today. I wish you all the success in your future endeavors, and we'll have to stay in touch. We got a trip to New Orleans to plan.
Yeah, of course, Michael. Appreciate you having me on.
Yes, sir.